This Sunday, the readings, both the Old Testament and the Gospel, have a lot of thought about following in the words of Christ. So last week, we heard this very difficult transition as we've been talking about Jesus being the bread of the world, the bread of heaven. And last week in the Gospel, the apostles and especially the Pharisees and the scribes were having a lot of trouble with this teaching. And Jesus sums it up by saying, these are the words of the Spirit, and they are words of spirit and life. And now we're going to position, as we move away from some of that high carb kind of reading that we've had for the past month, to really talk about the words of Jesus and following in them. So our music will really reflect following the words of Jesus, having them knit in our hearts and as a path for us to map out our lives. The offertory anthem is a very special piece that I'd like to spend a few moments talking about. It's a setting of verses from Psalm 86. Teach me thy way, O Lord, and I will walk in your truth. And it's by the American composer Aaron J. Kernis. One of the reasons this piece is very special to us in the choir, we started back at the beginning of my tenure, we started a tradition where we put an anthem in the library to honor those who retire from the choir. At the beginning of the pandemic, it was a very bittersweet moment that our beloved Nancy Gosley decided that it was time that, with the slowdown in activity, that this was probably a time that she was ready to retire from the choir. And we were very sorry to see her go, but of course honored that decision that she was making. And so we put this piece in the library in honor of all of the gifts that she has given to St. John's through music and through her participation in the choir. And I think it's a really appropriate anthem to honor Nancy with, because it's a very intellectual anthem. It's something that has a lot of interesting things going on, and yet it's also, as you know, Nancy, just very pleasant and something that you don't have to get all that tied up with intellectually to understand it and enjoy it on a more visceral level. So the piece is mainly in a meter where there are 6 pulses per meter. So there's a pattern of 6 pulses in each measure. And those pulses can be grouped in 3 groups of 2 or in 2 groups of 3. So we're familiar with the West Side Story music by Leonard Bernstein, and he uses that same kind of organizing principle with I want to come in America, da, 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 where you have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So you have that division of 6 pulses in 2 groups of 3 and then in 3 groups of 2. Aaron J. Kernis, this contemporary composer who, like Bernstein, is known much more for his compositions for the concert hall than for church, does the same thing but on a very laid-back, slow kind of pace. So the organ starts off with this groups of 3 with only the pedal playing at a very high pitch. So you have 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, like this. But then when the voices come in, they come in with that alternate grouping of 2 groups of 3. Really interesting in the way it kind of has this expansive feel with both of those organizing elements going on at the same time. Kernis also writes some very interesting effects with the organ, so pay special attention to all of what's going on with the organ, because there are some really beautiful and interesting things that happen. But then in the middle, there's this beautiful melody for the full choir singing in unison. I will praise thee, O Lord my God. I will praise thee with all my heart. And it has this beautiful soaring type of melody that really captures the essence of those words. Builds on that, really expressive and very beautiful. Then it returns to the beginning musical matter where you have sort of a return to some of those beginning ideas musically, and it wraps off in a very peaceful way. So I hope that you'll pay special attention to this offertory anthem especially, but all of the music and the prayers and the readings as we seek to hear Christ's words for us and to follow them in the way of truth.